even this shit crank.
Oh, and he had some cocaine, and he had 450 counts of child pornography. His bond's about $2.5 million. Kevin Scott Woods, he's 39. He's single, he lives in Polk City. He gets federal assistance, about $1,450 a month, he said. So he sits at home while you work, pay taxes, give him federal assistance for him. And he had 450 counts of child pornography. His bond's about $2.5 million. Kevin Scott Woods, he's 39. He's single, he lives in Polk City. He gets federal assistance, about $1,450 a month, he said. So he sits at home while you work, pay taxes, give him federal assistance for him to indulge in child pornography. He's charged with 35 counts. His focus was children 6 to 8 years of age. His bond is $350,000. He confessed after we found the images. And we go, why didn't you confess right up front? He said, well, I thought maybe you wouldn't find them. I had them hidden. And if you didn't find them, there's no need for me to confess. But then he threatened to eat people's face off or stab someone while he was in the jail. Nice guy. Don't you want a room with him? We put the detention staff on notice of his bizarre statements. And then there's Henry Dunn. He's a shop manager for Counter Effects by Roger. They specialize in kitchen counters and that sort of thing. He's married. He's from Winter Haven. 1 year ago, we served a search warrant on him, but we couldn't get into his phone. We highly suspected at that time he had child porn. He wouldn't let us into his phone. We couldn't crack the phone. So guess what? Our detectives don't forget. A year later, we show back up with another search warrant, and we catch him with his phone open. And when we arrest him, his wife learn your lesson the last time by bothering us. And we go, I guess we're slow learners. We're back, and we got his phone, and it's got pornography on it. 40 counts of child porn. That's right, that's what he's charged with. But here's what's frightening about this guy. He sent and received text, and his fantasy was sexually explicit memes that talked about daddy and daughters doing terrible things and how he fantasized about that. Now, we saw no evidence of that conduct occurring, but he was fantasizing and talking about it. We know that statistically, one research shows us that the overwhelming majority, I think it's close to 80% of these people that possess child porn either have had sexual conduct or contact with children or would if given the opportunity. So he was one step away. So he was charged with promotion as well as 40 counts of child porn. And we also found cannabis at his house. His bond was $616,000. Think about it. Just think about this. So the sheriff's office shows up at your house with a search warrant a year ago, and you escape criminal prosecution because we can't get into your phone. You think you'd learn a lesson. But understand, these folks are so fixated on the sexual abuse of children, they throw caution to the wind. Well, he's in jail, where he should be. and we're going to do our best to send him to prison. Then there's Eddie Zumeta. He's a lifeguard at Shades of Green, which is a large hotel on the Disney property. He is not a Disney employee. He's employed by the Department of Army as a lifeguard. That's right. He works for the Department of Army as a lifeguard. He had images of children about 4 years of age. We charged him with 20 counts of possession of child porn. He's still under investigation. He has a $115,000 bond, and he's married. And then we have Mr. Silas Harris. He works at Walmart. He's a night stock clerk. He's also an assistant coach in Little League football of little boys 8 to 10 years of age, called the Lakeland Destroyers. He's dirty in his chats. He talks about one day having daughters and then having children with those daughters, and that's what he fantasizes about. Now, he has no children, but he fantasizes with his other deviant friends about when he has daughters, then he can have children with his daughters. When we talked to him about this, he said he didn't want to talk about his child porn. And they go, well, why not? He said, because that Grady Judd is ruthless. That is the greatest Christmas present I've received or will receive this year, for the child pornographers to recognize that I'm ruthless. No, I'm only the ruthless coach. My great detectives are the ones that are ruthless toward those that they can arrest for child pornography. He had 662 counts of child pornography. Knowing we're ruthless, he still possessed child porn. Silas, we arrived. Merry Christmas. Our Christmas present to you is a jail cell and ultimately state prison. Just consider it the Christmas present that keeps on giving. And then the next man that I want to talk to you about is the one that we did a press release on, and we called him the bad turkey at Thanksgiving. This is Sean Fitzgerald. He was a teacher at Lakeland High School. He was a varsity soccer coach at Lakeland High School. He was a youth director at the First Methodist Church in Bartow. Originally, we charged him with 408 counts of child porn. We told you that he was a deviant of monumental proportions. He liked to be around children. We still have found no evidence and had no one come forward to say that he acted out against their children, and hopefully that's a good sign that it didn't happen. If he did, we need to know. But I told you he was still under investigation. We have added another 389 charges of child porn on top of the original 408 charges. And guess what? We haven't gotten through all of his device yet. There still could be more charges. He's still under further investigation. He focused on child porn with children between 18 and 24 months. What was shocking about him, the detective said when you look at child pornographers, many of them will focus in a certain age bracket. And for all this porn that he had, they estimated that about 80% of it was very, very young children. He's currently got a bond of $3.9 million. He's married. He lived in Lakeland. Right now he lives in Frostproof in the county jail, the South County Jail. But our last example today was an arrest we made last night. And it epitomizes exactly why we do this. Daniel Sweeney, he's 48. He is a registered sex offender. The Winter Haven Police Department arrested him for 10 counts of child porn in 2007. He got him an attorney, and it took to 2012 for him to be adjudicated. But he went to prison on a 5-year sentence. And he was released at just over 4 years because they get gain time for good conduct. But did I point out to you, we got some legislators that think that we don't give them enough gain time. Okay? So pay attention to your legislators this session that wants to let these kind of guys out of prison even sooner. But he had what started out as 5 more years of probation, but he violated his probation. So he ended up having his probation extended by the courts. He ended up with 12 years of probation. And guess what happened yesterday? We received a tip that he was involved in video voyeurism. That's right. What we found is children he had access to in the neighborhood. He had videoed them nude. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? So we arrested him for violation of his probation. He's a registered sex offender that was living in that neighborhood. We still have him under investigation. We saw the nude pictures of the very young girl that he took photographs of, and he confessed. And he said, just go ahead and send me back to prison. I've relapsed. No, you haven't relapsed. You were lapsed the whole time. But this is what happens with these kinds of people. If they're not locked up, they're going to engage in child pornography or worse. Did you hear me say one research tells us that 80% of these folks have had inappropriate, illegal contact with children or would given the opportunity? Here's your sign. And this is why we do it. And we've got him locked up in jail. This is not only our Christmas present to him, but it's our Christmas present to the children in the neighborhood, because we got a deviant away from them. It makes me angry when you think about it, and I'm certain it makes you angry as well. So this time we get a high school coach, a youth minister, a youth football coach, a lifeguard, and military veterans, retired military veterans, all deviants. So at the end of the day, the investigation goes on, and here's our warning. We're not done yet. And to quote our predator, that Grady judge, ruthless. Believe it. Believe my detectives are all ruthless. We're coming after you all. And if you didn't go to jail this time, you'll go to jail next time. We don't give up. Any questions?
How did the guy get the video of the girl? Was he sneaking around, peeking through windows? Or?
Well, we're not going to release how he did that because, for obvious reasons, but we can tell you that he surreptitiously took video of children he had or a child he had access to in the neighborhood.
Without going too far into it, is it fair to say undercover detectives sort of made contact with these guys and it goes from there?
We received tips. And when we received tips that they were engaged in this conduct, we established probable cause. We worked with Brad Copley, who is our prosecutor at the state attorney's office, and were able to obtain search warrants for their homes and their devices. And when we arrived, we seized their devices and found the child pornography. It's a straight up, open and shut type of case. Well, to say you're angry with these people is certainly an understatement. The reality is they're prowling around online. We have pushed and pushed and pushed with the federal government to change the rules. We are fought by the big internet providers. You see, there's algorithms that all of these internet providers can read. They could stop the transmission of child pornography in its tracks so people could not move child pornography. But they don't. And we're not catching all of them. And we're not identifying these babies. But the most horrific thing to me is when I talk to my detectives and our prosecutor, and he says, when you now with modern technology, you have sound. When you hear the baby screaming and you see the babies with their umbilical cords still attached, they're that young, being sexually battered by adults, your level of anger is just unexplainable. But our detectives are the ultimate professionals.